Aunty Pamela Grant. How are you today?
I'm well, Mide. How are you?
I'm
Good to
doing
see you.
Oh,
Good to see you.
likewise. I'm glad to have you as a guest on the Giving Black podcast. As you know, I'm such an admirer of you and your work, and I would even go as far as to say the legacy of community building that you have blessed us with here in Toronto, and I'm sure even across Ontario and Canada in general. So I want to thank you for that. I know you and have known you for about 18 years now. And I've seen you work and I've seen the impact of your work, particularly as it pertains to Black youth in Toronto, in underserved communities, and the ways that you have developed strategies and programs to support them. I have a question for you. It's a deep curiosity that I have, and I think our listeners and viewers would want to know this too. Where did it all begin for you?
Ooh. First of all, I'd just like to thank you so much for your kind words and for the opportunity to be on the Giving Black podcast. And the feeling is mutual. I really look up to you, Mide. I think back, it doesn't even seem like 18 years in some ways. And then in other ways, it seems like we've probably known each other forever. So it's an odd scenario, but a very comforting and comfortable one. So the question, I would say that a lot of who I am and what I do and what I believe in really does go back to my grandparents and parents and my family. I think on both sides, both my father's side, the Anderson side, and my mother's side, the Williams side. Nice slave names. In Guyana, I think I grew up understanding the importance of community and the importance of service to the community, and understanding who I am as a Black Guyanese, an Afro Guyanese, and being more cosmopolitan than I think most people tend to be, and that goes straight to my dad, who was that person. He taught us. I knew about parts of the world and governments and movements and that kind of thing before I was in double digits. My dad would sit us on the back steps and he would talk to us about what was happening in Indonesia, what was happening in Kenya and the Mau Mau and all those sorts of things that I don't think most people, Kwame Nkrumah. I think if I'm to think about Nigeria, he would sit and teach us about how you say Olesigun, right? And he would say, if you can't think about it, just put it in the syllables that you can understand. Oh, lossy gun, he lost his gun, whatever. So my dad really was that person, and he both in Guyana, or not both, in Guyana, in the UK, where we lived for a while, in Canada, and across the Caribbean, he really was that kind of diasporic leader, elder, that kind of thing. So that's where it comes from. So as we say in Guyana, I come by it honestly.
Yes, yeah, it's. Thank you for sharing. It's so fascinating. I find when I speak with people who, like yourself, have just been phenomenal community builders, as volunteers, as leaders in the community, as leaders of local and national and sometimes even international organizations. And we get into the conversation of, so where did this all begin for you? Mm-hmm. Family just seems to be that anchoring point, right? It goes back. There's something deeply, and even how your how your father steeped you in Yoruba culture, Olusegun, and the great, I would say, giants who emanated from post-colonial Africa. There is this looking back that we, as Black people of African descent or origin, shall I say, cling on to. There's a lot about our past that influences our future. So I'm so glad that you embody that, even in the top end of our conversation here, because our past is so heavily influenced by our present our past influences so much our present and our future. So I know that you have led some of the major organizations in Toronto that have served youth. Could you just share with our audience? I understand the history of how you got involved and how you became aware of community. But what drove you to do or to get involved professionally as a community builder?
I'm going to go still back to my family. Everybody in my family is an educator.
Wow.
I'm the only one. My sister and I actually are the only ones that are not. And I spent a lot of time in academia, literally sitting in my dad's classes and my father-in-law's classes and having our home be that center of where the students would come and they call my dad Uncle Percy, right? Sit in our basement and plan whatever it is that they were going to plan, have those discussions. And one of the things that I learned very early on was that academia is academia. And there is not always the direct connection as there should be to community and where our people are and what they're doing and so on. There's very much I like to say the ivory tower philosophizing about that. And I don't think it's changed very much even now, decades later.
Yeah.
And I actually remember when I chose my, the things that I wanted to major in, the subjects I wanted to major in at university, I did that with a sense that I would engage differently, that I would be, as much as I'm not grassroots and I'm not, all of those things. I wanted to be in that situation where I met people where they were, and we worked together, and we understood what the issues are, and how the system works, and how we transform that system, which isn't meant to be transformed, by the way. I knew that early on. But there has to be a way in which we navigate, because that's the system we're living in. That's the context. And I found that, from a selfish perspective, that's where I felt most energized, most relevant, or that I could learn the most, right? And it was always about learning, because I like to think of myself as a lifelong learner.
Absolutely.
And, from the horse's mouth is always better. And I think that's it. And very early on, I just involved myself in things, or put myself, and it doesn't mean that I was comfortable doing it initially, but finding myself in places and spaces where I could learn more and understand more, and really work with my community and other communities to, toss things up a bit. Yeah. and transform them. And it always was about transform. You'll hear me use the word transform rather than change. Because that's really ultimately what we need to do if we want to make our experience in the systems work. It has to be the system or the systems all have to change or transform. And it's not, and it's more than what I used to say. I used to say it's like making room at the table. Now I'm understanding that we help build the table. And we better have room at the table, and we need to be able to. It's our table, basically. So that's it. And I would say that I'm a very experiential learner, and I am not linear in any. I don't speak linearly, and I don't experience the world and my environment in a linear way. So I can be very iterative, and so I understand, bumping into the walls or finding the little cracks in the walls and going through and over, around, and the need to do that. And I'd like to practice being that and not necessarily depending on the system to let me in. And if it does, I think that's a gap, and it's up to me to make room and space for others that I consider my community, whether I agree with them or not. And that's kind of how I've operated. I generally hired people who are like me or have a background or heritage that are and they're Afrocentric, yes, but and it is a but. I'm not afraid to engage people who don't think the way I think, or embrace them, or work with them, or what's the word? Promote them, understand their agency, and make room for them to be able to use their agency to get ahead in this context. And I've been lucky to do this and work this way. Yes, here in Canada, with young people and with women as well, and in Guyana and CARICOM. So I've done a significant amount of work across the Caribbean with CARICOM, Caribbean community, youth entrepreneurs, youth entrepreneurship, a number of different things. Very eclectic, I'd say.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh, as you were speaking, so many questions came to my mind, some philosophical and some actually quite direct. Let me see if I can, some of the discussion points. Thank you for sharing. The first, I'm going to be somewhat provocative. I want to go back to the statement that you made, that the systems that we find ourselves working with here in Canada, particularly I would say as Black immigrants, you said, frankly, we're not built for us. And then I heard you tag on your important work of advocacy to say that, the tables that have been built, that particularly were built without us as Black immigrants in mind, need to have room to accommodate us. And then you took it a step further to say, well, actually, we need to be co-builders of the table so that we can find our place. For me, there's a third a provocative posture, we might say. And it's increasingly one where I'm landing, that actually, why don't we just build our own table? And in building our own table, we can ensure that it's built with the systems that accommodate us. We can, of course, invite others to join us, but we have a particularly unique form of ownership when we build programs, systems, products, you name it, that actually are intended for us. And I find this really a tough juxtaposition because I'm a collaborative worker. I love to collaborate. I've been collaborating like you all of my life. And I've never felt that I have necessarily belonged on tables that had to make room for me, or even on those tables where I was invited to build one part, but the ownership of the entire table was not belonging to me or my community. And so I'm just like, well, why don't we just build our own tables also? What are your thoughts around those three scenarios? I know I don't want them to be binary or reductive, but I'm just saying, like, as thoughts around how we as Black immigrants progress and advance our agendas. How best can we do this?
I think
is it to insist on being co-builders, or is it to actually conceive of what our own version of the table looks like? What do you think?
It's not either or, as you said, or one or the other two. I think my original point, though, was actually a step further that requires us to look at what is the systems as they are differently. And I said, we built the tables. We helped build these tables, whether we understand or think it or not. We did. Whether it is through slavery, colonialism, whatever, we helped build what these systems that exist today. We were part of building. It might not have been willingly, it might not have been knowingly, but we very much have contributed to what it is. And, now that we might be more of us, and I'm not being in any way arrogant about, those of us who exist in 2026 versus those of us who existed in 1826. I'm simply saying that maybe more of us now, or we speak more of this, believe that we have answers or we have different ways of doing things that we could possibly try. We should build our own tables. We should take up space and room at those tables that exist. What did your parents always tell you? We have to work twice as hard, don't we? At least, right?
I'm still doing it.
We've got to be juggling more balls than anybody else. We cannot, and that's why I emphasize that, because the moment we take our eye off the ball that's considered the mainstream ball and say we're just going to focus on our own thing, in this context, this world, the way things are, we lose, right? We lose. So we have to know and understand what's happening at that table. We have to be present at the mainstream, neo-colonial, neoliberal, whatever that is. We have to be working diligently to build our own. Particularly in the circumstances that you know that I've worked in like community, like the and I like to say disenfranchised communities. Those have been literally and purposefully disadvantaged by the system, which that keeps that table, let's call that the mainstream table, being the table. But our ancestors did do things in parallel, right?
Yeah.
Right? They told us we couldn't learn to read and write, but we did.
Yeah.
Right? They told us we couldn't run, but we did.
Yeah.
They told us we couldn't, do scientific things, but we did. So when I say that we help build that table, every time you get one of those Instagram or whatever feeds that list off all the Black inventors, all the Black people that supported all the white people that mainstream folk that we think invented stuff, right? who co-opted our work and who. So I don't want us to not know that and embrace that, or reinvent a wheel. Oh, we don't need to, right? What we need is those spaces and places where we are more in control, and we're building, we're reasoning, we are rational, we're working that out for ourselves without the influence of those who don't really know us and don't understand us or don't care about us. And it also gives us time to know each other, because we don't. Right? We don't know each other. We don't necessarily trust each other. So we do need those spaces where it is just about us, for us. Where we learn how we work together, how we build community together. We have to do that over, because it's different. This is not, the community of slaves in Victoria, Guyana, who saved their money and bought land before the end of slavery, right? This is a whole bunch of us come from different parts of the world, and I'm speaking specifically of the North American diaspora, Turtle Island. We come from everywhere, all backgrounds, and we don't, know about each other very well, and I've noticed that. And we don't necessarily understand, and that's all part of the colonial brainwashing that we still have, the enslavement, whether we did go through slavery or not, but we've all been colonized, all of us. Even those on the African continent who say, "Oh, we were never colonized." Yes, you were. Yes. Oh. There isn't one location. Right? So, and even now, there's the neocolonialism where there's a whole group of new leaders who believe that they've been, they've gone to the right schools, whether it's Oxford or Harvard or whatever, and they understand the system. And now they're going to policy wonk their way through, and they're going to outsmart the system in the system without having created that, I would say, soft landing within their own community. Right? The community. So there's we as the various permutations of a diaspora, or the diaspora, have a lot of work to do. So there's a lot of room for each and every one of the approaches that you mentioned. But we shouldn't again throw the baby away with the bathwater. That other table is ours too.
Yes. I mean, the way that you have put it is that we have legacy even around the tables that eventually ended up excluded us. We have we have participatory rights. And of course, we are participating around those tables where people are actually saying, well, actually, let's build this together. And definitely, more to where I've been leaning just as a kind of, from a thought leadership perspective. It resonates, your point resonates to me. Number one, we are a fairly new community here as immigrants in Canada. And there are so many aspects of things that we need to build, as all immigrant communities arriving in new countries do. We've got to set up our social and economic fabric. And so I think that's the piece for me that I see myself as one who is building things that don't exist. So I understand the other tables, but this table has not yet been built.
Yeah.
It leaves a gap in our community. This very conversation around Black immigrants, our heritage in Turtle Island, and what is our contemporary role now. As to your point, we come together and start thinking about, yes, our differences, but also what aligns us. How do we create those platforms? Right. So those are the curiosities, I think that I have around, well, how do we build so much of what we don't already have? But I want to pivot, if I may. I want to ask you, what excites you about the role of Black immigrants in Canada today? What do you see maybe that is happening in community, perhaps even on the horizon, that you're thinking, oh, my goodness, yes, this is great. This is going to help advance us as Black people. Are there any examples or things that you know of or have heard of that kind of pique your curiosity and make you excited about our current time?
Very good question. Honestly, I'm loath to use the terms that you have used about being excited or that sort of thing, particularly as we juxtapose it with your last point, which is a notion or a sense that in our entirety, we have some building to do.
Yeah.
We have to have, or we have to continue the conversations that may have started in the 60s, stopped, 70s, stopped, 80s, stopped, 90s, stopped, early 2000s. And I think that's how it's happened. The continuity piece is, it is not as tangible to me. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. I'm just not feeling it.
Yeah.
And if you speak specifically about the newer immigrants who are coming, that are part of the diaspora, I would say that there is seemingly a lot less community in terms of the broader piece. There might be community of nationality, perhaps. There might be community but in terms of across, and I think in this conversation, I don't think we can forget the Indigenous African Canadian residents out east, out west. I mean, across the country, actually, but we always think of Nova Scotia. But and how do we continue conversations? How do we continue the coming together?
Yeah.
Because that's necessary too. Because as long as we just call ourselves Black, then we then we have to continue to feed and embellish and create and grow what that means, right? And the feeling I get, and I could be wrong, and you might be able to advise me differently, is that there's less of that and more of, Horn of Africa folk building their community, and not even able to say that because they're all the splits now: Somaliland, Somalia, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Djibouti, right? And and that's just one little. That's one tiny little. Yeah.
Yeah. The
and I think
reality of Blackness is real.
It is, but it also is. It may be deliberate, it may not be, but it's a movement away from the kind of thing that we're talking about. It's almost like we are intersectional, but it seems to be some elements of the intersection are leading us more than the one that traditionally, right? We talked about,
Yeah.
or traditionally we had or we operated under. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I think it's something that we just need to understand and work accordingly. Because, you know, as you brought in religion and culture and nationality, those are things seem to be leading now rather than
Yeah.
being part of the broad international diaspora in
Mhm.
Canada.
Yeah.
And I think some of the younger people just don't even see that so much.
Mhm.
And they convene around other issues or other identities or other, you know, and that's real too.
I agree with you. I mean, I use the word fragmentation to describe what you speak about. I think demographically, we in Canada, we're waking up what maybe 4.5% of the population,
Mhm.
and we are this block called Black. And to your point, within that Black bloc, we have Indigenous, Afro Canadians. We have Caribbeans from a plethora of different islands, and even for yourself in South America and Guyana. We have people from all over the 54 countries on the African continent. We have people like me who are kind of double immigrants, first generation UK, Nigerian, now kind of like first generation Canadian, Nigerian, British, right? So you know, there is so much diversity within us as a
Mhm.
Black community. But, you know, the thing I always say to myself is, as different and unique as we are, what unites us is our ancestral homeland is the African continent. And the place where we are presently is, to your point, Turtle Island. And so I'm like, okay, so what do we do with this? Like, you know, no matter how different and diverse we obviously are, there is also so much that is in commonality with who we are. And I want to draw this conversation to Black philanthropy, if I may, because here's a topic. Here's a topic that will perhaps help us illustrate even more clearly just the vast nature of the cultural diversity of what it is to be Black, while also what it is to be, for example, an Afro-Canadian. And so in the world of philanthropy, there are some exciting things that I think are happening within Black community, let's put it that way. We have amongst the highest rates of altruism, as certainly amongst the Black immigrant population here in Canada. Our volunteering rate is about 74%. So that for me kind of makes me excited around the fact that actually we are in community doing and contributing, doing work and contributing to the building of the fabric here in Canada. Our level of generosity, even in terms of giving philanthropically, donating, 80% of us are involved. And our giving rates are about $800, which is practically more than double the white population here in Canada in terms of how we show up to give. And we're not even including in that the overseas remittances that you may send to Guyana or I may send to Nigeria. So things in the world of philanthropy excite me. But I also see some aspects of philanthropy where I feel actually there's something deeper to this going on, which is that our Black-led, Black-serving, Black-focused community organizations tend not to be funded by the mainstream. And perhaps even, I might say, not really appreciated by the entirety of who we are as Black or Afro Canadians. So let's talk about the exciting part of that, our participation in philanthropy. And then let's talk about, well, how do we maybe fix or adjust some of our current behaviors towards philanthropy so we can have healthy, well-funded, Black-led, Black-serving, Black-focused organizations?
I'm going to backtrack a bit and just concur with you in terms of the stats. I think late 1990s and certainly into the first decade of the 21st century, I did a series of research pieces for the United Way and for the YMCA, where it was clear then that the Black community in all of its permutations gave was the highest per capita.
Wow.
They gave donations. So the numbers were higher than 80% that you quoted, but per capita definitely higher than any other group, period. They gave, I was able to drill it down to get an understanding of what they gave to and who they gave to. And one of the disappointing things for me was that they tended to give to the mainstream, and this is both dollars and volunteer time to mainstream organizations like the Cancer Society, the Heart and Stroke, and the hospitals, and so on, and did not necessarily. And the only other part that's different from that was that they gave to their churches, and that's where they gave the highest. So their churches or their mosques. I did not do a deep dive into the Afro-Muslim community, but that was worth noting. But in terms of giving to causes that one might define as Black, community organizations, etc., that was a no-go. And I'll use a very specific example. So I spoke to you about my dad. He was very active in the community and in academia. And when he passed away, we set up a fund. It still exists. It's a scholarship for young people at York University who are studying Caribbean studies. So my dad and my father-in-law actually were the two Black professors who built and grew the Caribbean side of the Latin American and Caribbean Studies program, LACS, at York University. So when he passed, a bunch of his Black students got together with my sister and myself, and we started this W.W. Anderson Fund. So we actually asked, when he retired, we set that up. So when he passed, we asked folk, when you get the little donation packages, all the ones that they're at the funeral home, and then the W.W. Anderson Fund. Well, you know what happened, right? People gave to the heart and stroke and cancer. And to this day, I would say that there's like 3 or 4 of us who continue to donate to that, but that's where we volunteer, and even at the United Way, we could see that the loaned executives or the loaned staff, the majority of them were Black. The majority of them gave their time to the mainstream, the sort of United Way type piece, but not necessarily dollars to the JCA or to Tropicana or I can't remember the one of the organizations that was specifically African based. Yeah. So and it was actually through that both JCA and Tropicana set up separate foundations as a way to try to support themselves in addition to whatever United Way membership funding they would get or maybe not get the next year, right? And so I'm not sure what the environment is right now, but it seems to be that yes, we're feeling philanthropic. Yes, we give to our churches, but to the point that you made earlier about the need and the understanding that we actually have our own community organizations that we're trying to build and grow and develop or create. It isn't necessarily a priority, or we maybe, I don't know if we're asking the wrong questions or approaching it in a way that could be better in order to have us be supporting our own organizations. Because the mainstream now and the United Way and some of the major donors have changed the way they provide funding now. So they're not giving us, and I mean the situation across the board with philanthropy and with fundraising is pretty dire.
Absolutely, especially in these economic times.
These economic times are not great, and so it just makes the pressure on the organizations and agencies that we set up to help ourselves with this very specific community issues and youth issues and family issues that we have that the other guys aren't supporting.
Yeah.
It makes it that much more challenging, right?
Yeah,
so,
Aunty Pam, absolutely. And your work from more than 20 years ago, I think is validated certainly by me anecdotally, and certainly also I would say by the material that I have read, that we tend not to be parochial in our giving outside of the Black church or our mosques or synagogues or temples. We tend not to be parochial. I think that for me is both a kind of strength, but also a point of contention for us. I think there ought to be balance. I should be able to support my university or the hospital in my neighborhood with my philanthropy as a Black man, while also recognizing that that community group on the other side of the road that is Black-led, Black-serving, and Black-focused also needs and requires my support. And I've had this conversation with a number of people in the fundraising and philanthropic space. As a matter of fact, in our last podcast with Michelle Renee Brown, she shared a story of, I think, a Trinidadian philanthropist in the United States who put it to her this way, that no organization, no Black organization was entitled to his philanthropy. And I found that that's still a statement that I am weighing up to try and really evaluate the meaning of that and ask myself, well, why? And is entitlement really what we're talking about?
Is that the term? Yeah, is that
community that is most important? So when I heard that, I was kind of stopped in my tracks. And I'm like, I've got to dig a little bit deeper into maybe the psychology of Black philanthropy. Why do those of us who are wealthy feel that when Black-led, Black-serving, and Black-focused organizations come knocking, that they come with a sense of entitlement? Why is that the first reaction that we have? And then secondly, for me, I'm like, okay, but why would you object? That's her point, to be fair.
So what? Now what?
To be fair to this person that Michelle had referenced, she did say he supports Black causes, but he contextualized it within, from what I understand, that sense of entitlement. And I'm really kind of sensitive to try and understand, what does that mean? And then secondly, I feel like, oh, could this be symptomatic of what you and I see happening in Black communities as far as philanthropy towards Black-led, Black-serving, Black-focused causes, and our seeming reluctance, particularly amongst the most affluent, I would say, to kind of want to more fund the big institutions in our city or in our country.
It really does get down at the end of the day in my mind, and maybe I'm distilling it to irrelevance, but I think it's still the trust thing. It is still those philanthropists, and I put that in inverted commas, who happen to be of the same background as us, are actually have become that way because of their success in the broader
mainstream.
And so the notion or the stereotype that Black communities are always coming with their hands out and don't have the agency to build something big and bold and sustainable or sustained. There's a lot of behind the scenes, not necessarily forthright printed discourse about that stereotype. Right? The whole notion about our ability or inability to manage funds in a non-corrupt way, you know, all of that, I think, plays into this notion that, hey, heart and stroke, feed the children, even though Feed the Children had great controversy, few decades ago, right? Because, you know, I see their ads on TV and they must be real and authentic.
Yes.
Versus, Miss
the local
Miss Maisie's reading homework club. Like pathways to education, sure, but not right. So, and that's all part of the racist context that we're in, right? So it's another manifestation of it, and
I'm glad
anti-Black,
you're it, by the way, Aunty Pam. I'm glad
anti-Black racism is not only perpetrated by people who aren't Black.
That's right.
20% of Black people operate within the notion and the context and with the power to be anti-Black racist. Okay, so that's real. That's real.
You are dropping some knowledge on us now. I really want to go there.
Another conversation another time.
Thank you. Another conversation indeed. So you know, I think you've hit the nail on the head, and I think, you know, I would love us on the podcast to be able to have these types of deep and resonant conversations about the things that we think we need to do to build the type of communities that we dream about for ourselves currently and for the future. As I was saying before, I think there is a lot of building work that we need to be involved in. And I think that you also shared that. And yes, that can be around creating the room for us to be on existing tables, co-building existing tables, and even going as far as building our own. I think there's more work. I'm glad that you kicked off our conversation with this journey, that amazing journey that you have had as a community builder, steeping it in your family and the impact of your father as an academic and shaping your viewpoint around the world. Or viewpoint of the world, shall I would say. I just am really kind of grateful that you shared so much about him, his peers, and the work that he was involved in as an academic. There is a point that you made which we haven't really gone into, but I feel it so much in my heart around the stop, start, stop, start. And I just envisage that if we could build momentum and critical mass and allow that to work for a continuous amount of time, I think Black community in Canada would be far more advanced. But the stopping and the starting, this these generational intervals where we're doing really great work for a generation, and then in another generation, we're not really advancing as far as we should or can. I think it's something that also I want to kind of take away and sit with for a little bit. Mm-hmm. Typically, we've had a very serious conversation, and if you actually go back to our archive at the Giving Black podcast, all of our conversations are pretty much serious and steeped in the issues that we face as a Black community and some of the solutions that we can bring to the table, or the critical work that we are involved in to build community. And I love those conversations. I thought in our conversation, we might begin a new trend where we can address some of these big issues that need to be put on the table for us to reflect on as a community, but also talk about the things that are fun in our lives. So, Aunty Pam, I feel I know the question to some of, I feel I know the answers to some of the questions I'm about to ask you, but share with us, please, when you're at home and you have time on your hands, who are the two musical artists that by default you go to kind of just brighten up your day, or just set you in that mood of positivity?
Positive, it can vary. Today, it would be Luther Vandross.
Oh. Yeah.
And other days, it would be Erykah Badu.
Oh, yes.
And then other days, it could be Bob Marley or other, it really depends. And then other days, I just want to hear instrumental music, and I listen to a lot of on my playlist, and is what's his name? I'll just say the song that I will turn on just to make me feel good. Tutu by oh my gosh. Yes, Miles Davis.
Miles Davis Tutu. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So
man,
a bit eclectic. Pardon?
I said you have some stellar people that you were listening to. For sure.
Yeah.
And is there a book that you have read that really has transformed your way of thinking, being, or even understanding the world or who you are?
Not lately, but I think the first book that actually transformed the way I think or see the world, or opened my eyes, I guess, to other experiences of this world, is a book called The Woman's Room.
The Woman's Room, right.
And it was the first time that I understood that I was very lucky to have a father who was a feminist. And men in my life who I trust, respect, love, who loved me, those sorts of things. So the women's room is a and I don't remember the author. It's a North American Caucasian woman's experience of being a girl and then growing up. Because actually, the book, the cover of the book is the girls' room, and then it's girls is crossed out and woman is scrawled.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, that was the first time that I understood. Hey, there is a reason. The way in which women have been treated, understood, and so on. But my dad never called me girl. He called me young woman, or
Yeah.
or he spoke about persons or people. So all the stuff that we have now about gender fluidity and all that sort of stuff, I just grew up with that. It's not something I've had to assume.
Yeah.
Another book, again, not. It was Walter Rodney's How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. It didn't open my eyes. It confirmed the sorts of things that I had been taught and exposed to in terms of, living in different parts of the world and having the history. My dad was also a historian, so having that surround me. But, one book I've read recently, again, hasn't changed or opened my eyes necessarily, but again, confirmed some of my real, I wouldn't even say disappointments, but some of my still hard-held understandings and feelings about Canada and Canada's role in the world that is so different from what we portray. Canada's nice, Canada's kind, Canada's this and that. It's called Canada and NATO. And it's a very little tiny book. I read it in 2 days. It's like, I don't know, maybe 179 pages. And it's written by a young man. I don't remember anybody's names anymore, but he's out of Winnipeg. He's out of Winnipeg. He's a Canadian, and it lists all of the sort of recent history, current, and I'm interested in politics, right?
Yeah.
But it just contextualizes and juxtaposes the wonderful fairyland image that Canada has internationally and Canadians have of their country vis-a-vis, its role in a very direct role. And I mean, I could not be a Guyanese person and not know some of that, because Canada is the lead neocolonial power in Guyana, because it is the Commonwealth lead for the region, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I have sat in rooms in Guyana and seen Canada be more imperialistic than we think. And the resource extraction policies, the election interference policy, things like that. So that book actually just made me feel like, oh, yes, somebody is writing about this.
Yes, like pulling the veil back.
Yes, yes.
Thank you for sharing those. Final question from me. Your favorite comfort food?
Oh, that's hard too. Okay, I'm going to say my favorite comfort food is pepper pot.
Pepper pot.
So that's a traditional Guyanese dish. It is made from casrip, which is the dark syrup that comes from the cassava root.
Mm-hmm.
And you put meats, different kinds of meats in, and you just simmer it, and you have it over the course of days or even a week, as long as you have it with homemade bread or bakes. And so that's a Christmas morning, Easter, all the major celebrations. So that
Wow, pepper pot and
is,
bread. It's making me hungry.
yeah.
Literally, my stomach is rumbling at this point. I've had your cook up. Had the pleasure of being treated to your cook up, and oh my goodness, if pepper pot is anything like the cook up, I'm awaiting my next invite to your home.
Guyanese cooking is good. So the cook up is definitely our African heritage, black eye peas and coconut milk and all of that, and the pepper pot is indigenous. So the indigenous peoples, that's how they cured their wild meat and their catches and so on, and it sits and they can take it with them and eat. And then, of course, who doesn't like roti and curry, or curry and roti, depending on how you say it, right? So that's the other dish. That to me is comfort food. So none of my comfort food favorites are North American. They're all Guyanese because that reminds me of home, right?
Absolutely. Aunty
Yeah.
Pam, wow, what an amazing conversation. Thank you for being so generous with your time and your thoughts. Thank you really for shaping this conversation around our heritage as Black people on Turtle Island and what it means to us, the things that we need to be building, and also those aspects of our current state that we need to pay attention to, while also reminding ourselves that, there's a lot for us to celebrate in our musical heritage, in our arts and reading, and also in food. So with that, I say thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you, Mide. Thank you.
And
That's right.
look forward to having you over again very soon.
Yes, and let's not forget the shoulders upon which we stand.
Absolutely. Let's not forget that. We have a rich heritage, and
we do.
We've got to make sure we continue the work that has begun already.
Thank you, Mide. All the very best, and let's stay in touch.
Absolutely. Okay.
Take care.
Well, Giving Black family, I hope you enjoyed this entertaining conversation between me and Aunty Pam. There are many more conversations that are coming up in the next few weeks and months, which I would love for you to be part of. Just want to say to you that if you know anyone whom you would like to appear on the Giving Black podcast, or if you yourself would like to be a guest on the Giving Black podcast, please reach out to us via the Giving Black website, www.givingblack.ca. And I would be pleased to connect with you and have a conversation. Till then, Giving Black family, be good. And if you can't be good, please be careful.